don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz in the house. That's right. I did not have a tea time in the afternoon. I am skipping out on afternoon tea times. I'm getting a little ready for season 7, so I'm taking a little bit of break. Plus, I'm going to become a grandma in the new year, so getting all that stuff ready for my new granddaughter. We do have a 4-time returning guest in the house tonight. We have Zachary Hagen in the house, and we're going to talk about his series because we started this series 4 years ago with Zachary. We didn't start with book 1, so we're going to talk about book 1 a little bit tonight, and then we're going to talk about all of the incredible books along the way, and we're going to pop up the last book, the ending. That's right, we got an ending, so we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all of those good platforms. You guys know how Miss Liz works. Give that a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out because they all make a difference, one cup of tea at a time. So let's get started with a disclaimer and then an intro, and then we're going to get Zachary in here and we're going to spill some tea. And tonight's tea is Tenacity, Evolution, and Enchantment. That is the tea that we are serving tonight in the house. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by the guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit Miss Liz's Tea Time on my link tree. By choosing to participate in, comment on, and view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Tonight, I welcome back a 4-time returning guest, an author who writes not just with imagination, but with intention. Zachary Hagen, Christian fantasy author and the creator of the Eternal Chronicles. Zachary brings us stories filled with dragons, destiny, and the eternal battle between darkness and light. But behind every chapter is a message of faith, purpose, and courage. From eternity as well as to the powerful final eternity ends, Zachary has built a world where hope is tested, heroes rise, and every choice echoes behind the page. He writes with the heart of a mentor, the soul of a believer, and the curiosity of a lifelong reader who once fell in love with Narnia and never stopped exploring new worlds. Tonight, he brings us the last great chapter in a saga that has carried readers through storms, fires, and faith, reminding us that even in fantasy, truth still finds us. Pour your cup, settle in, and let's journey through storytelling, faith, and the legacy of a world coming to its final stand. Let me get Zachary in here and let's spill some tea together. Welcome, Zachary.
Thank you so much for having me again, Miss Liz.
It is a pleasure always to see you. And a lot of things have happened in those 4 years that we'll be talking about tonight. So, Zachary, for my first time listeners that are hearing you for the first time, could you share a little bit on who you were as a little guy and who you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am very privileged to be able to get to do exactly what I wanted to do when I was a little kid. From the very earliest I can remember, I've always wanted to write and I've always wanted to teach, and I'm currently doing both of those things, which is fantastic. So I became a teacher in 2020, and that same year I started and finished and got ready to publish my first novel, Eternity's Well. So that's been out since, yeah, it came out near the end of 2021 was when I finished the publication process. I think it came out in August or October of that year.
Oh, I didn't realize it came out in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, look at that. Well, let's talk about book one.
Yeah. So the first book was a challenge to write because I'd never done it before, of course, but the story was really compelling, I think, for me, because I wanted to write something that kind of honored C.S. Lewis's legacy first and foremost, because I had a student tell me that they had never read the Chronicles of Narnia and probably wouldn't because it was too old. And I thought, yeah, which is crazy to me because those things are sort of evergreen. But I thought, well, that same message needs to be reignited for kids who maybe wouldn't pick up Narnia because the style is too old for them, and that is going to feel more familiar for them, but still get that same message. So my, in many ways, Eternity's Well is an homage to C.S. Lewis's first book, not chronologically, because of course he wrote them out of order, but to the first book that he wrote, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
So, Zachary, we have a question here. Is Narnia the book the same as Narnia the movie?
Depends on who you ask. Yes and no. Obviously, any movie adaptation isn't going to perfectly adapt the book, but largely it's the same story, same plot points. Not if we're talking about Fox's version of Voyage of the Dawn Treader. That's almost an entirely different story.
Well, there is a lot of different avenues of Narnia, right? Like you said, like the book, the other movie, and then by Fox. You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never read Narnia, and maybe I should.
It's a fantastic series. It really is.
So, Zachary, what has happened in the last 4 years that we can share online?
Well, I have written and published 5 novels, and written a 6th for that, but that's coming out in February. So,
juice.
So in 5 years, I've wrote those books. I've taught at a few different schools. I got a master's degree in education, and I'm currently under consideration for moving into an administrative job for education, which is exciting. And I'm continuing my writing career, of course. And I think most importantly in those years, I had my first son this May.
Oh, in May. Oh, he's a Taurus?
I guess so. I'm not super familiar with astrology things, but yeah, so he was born on May 12th.
Oh, I think he is a Taurus. Awesome, baby. I'm a Taurus, though. I rock for all the Tauruses out there.
Yeah, so he's 6.5 months old now. He's keeping us on our toes. He's really smart, or at least eager to do things that you wouldn't think that a 6-month-old wants to do. So he's showed signs of readiness for potty training, which was not expected, but we're kind of doing that.
Well, that is cool. At 6 months, that is cool. Yeah.
So It's the best thing I've ever done. I mean, I love writing, of course. It's why I'm doing this and why I'm here. But best thing I've ever done is being a dad. So
Zachary, do you ever think you'll create a character that's based on your son?
I mean, I don't see why not. A lot of the characters in my books have been based off of people that I know. People who know my wife and I well will see echoes of character traits in the main character, Elior, in Eternity's Well, and Nereza, his love interest. So they'll see echoes. It's not a one-to-one recreation, but there are definitely elements that have made it their way in there.
So how did you get the titles of all 5 books? I got them here, but I want you to share.
Yeah. So it started with Eternity's Well, and I kind of had this desire for the main object of the story, because the main cast of characters is trying to find the Well of Eternity. And it's this link. There's a lot of symbolism with water and how it connects to the unseen realm, to their world's version of heaven. And so Eternity's Well is the link between Lux Terra and the unseen realm, where the deity Elon resides and sustains life from there. And in Eternity's Well, that connection is in danger. And so the connection to the eternal, to a force outside of time, was kind of the impetus for naming the well that, and that sort of cascaded into the other names, because I wanted there to be consistency. I really struggled actually with naming the second book when I started working on it, because I had the story and I knew that I had this idea for the dragons to have been gifted a mirror that was no longer working because it had been sealed. That was a portal between the two sides of the world. Because if for anyone who's read any of the books, my world, Lux Terra, is a double-sided flat world. So kind of like a coin.
Oh, so kind of when you flip the mirror, right? When one side brings you like magnified and then the other side brings you further away.
Yeah, kind of. And it was another homage to C.S. Lewis, because his, of course, Narnia is a flat world as well. And that became a topic of conversation for people, the characters that came from our world and went into theirs, because Prince Caspian always wanted to visit a world that was a ball. And so that was a little homage to those concepts in there. And I could not figure out what to call the book until I realized, well, if I just called the mirror Eternity's Mirror, then that it has the same 2-word title as it went. Now, the other books didn't always have something that they were seeking, but Eternity's Refuge ended up working well as the name of the secret society that of believers who were faithful to Michael, the Aslan stand-in from the first book, who of course represents Christ, and then Eternity's Edge. The edge of eternity was sort of the edge of the world in a way. And then Eternity's End, of course, what else do you call the last book in a series other than the end?
I didn't ever think you were going to get to the end, because we talked about that when I had you on the first time. And I said, do you ever think you'll end the series? And you're like, oh, I don't know. So then when Mickey sent me the end, I was just like, oh, he ended it.
Yeah, I mean, the doors open for prequels and other stories that I could tell from the Bible adapted as part of the universe, but Elior's story had to come to an end somewhere. It couldn't go on forever. And
so how did go ahead, Zachary.
Yeah, oh, I was just saying, and it just he needed a happy ending after so many
That's how we got the ending. It was a happy ending, guys. Zachary, how did you get the colors of the books? Because the first book was purple, second was blue, third was green, then the edge was like a brown and gold, and then red.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a burnt orange, the fourth book, Eternity's Edge.
Oh, it was a burnt orange.
Mm-hmm. The spine of it is definitely more brown, but the center of the cover is more orangey. There's actually, for those who will pick up on it, there's actually some symbolism tied into the message of the last book, or to the story of the last book. Anyone who actually, I don't have the copy in here. If I did,
I'm gonna pop it up so we can
Okay.
talk about this book, because this is the last one. This is the ending. So I'm gonna pop it up. And for all the audio listeners out there, Zachary, if you could
Yeah,
just,
I'm gonna see if I can actually pull up. So yeah, so that's the
there we go.
Eternity's End cover, and if you open it up, there's an epitaph in there, a verse from the Bible where it says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man." And we can see a dragon going after a ship and waves. So anyone who's familiar with the story of the flood might know why I chose those particular colors.
I like the ending. Like, I like the cover of it. I like all the covers because I think they're all cool. I like dragons. You know that, when we
Mm-hmm.
talked the first time. So what got you into the dragon, Zachary?
So a lot of it was tying in biblical symbolism. So of course, dragons are symbolic of Satan in the Bible, and the main villain, who is a jinn when we meet him, we learn in the first book that he lost his dragon form for his rebellion.
Oh,
And so he's bipedal until he is able to gain enough power to turn himself back. And that's when he tries to take his ultimate revenge.
so Zachary, your books are targeting for youths, correct?
Primarily, yes. But I think anyone of any age can enjoy them. I think it was reported a few years ago now that the largest group of YA readers is actually middle-aged women.
Oh,
So anyone can read them. I still read The Hunger Games when they come out, but that's still technically young adult fiction.
so in all of your books in that series, Zachary, they're based on Christian faith, correct?
Yes. So I basically cover the whole of church history, from Jesus's ministry through to the second coming.
I like how you brought your stories in so that the youths and middle-aged women, like, you just never know who's reading a book, right? Or who's listening to something. It surprises me as well sometimes on who my listeners are. And I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
So we had some questions that came in for you, Zachary, that I'd like to get out to you tonight. Eternity Ends marks the conclusion of your 5 books saga. Saga? The Eternal Chronicles. What emotions surfaced as you wrote the final words of the story that's been part of your life for years?
Oh gosh. It was definitely bittersweet because of course it was such a big portion of who I was during those years. Especially, it was kind of an anchor. It was a thing that I was doing even though I was moving between different schools and moving between a few different states. And it felt really good to finish such a big project, but it also was a little sad, knowing that I likely won't write for those characters again. I might write for the same world, and some of the characters, the ones that are very long-lived, will make returns and be alluded to, but the main cast, consisting of Elior, Nereza, Opal, and Nyx, their story is finished, and deservedly so. But I I get to revisit them by rereading the books, which, of course, if you leave a story for long enough, even if you wrote it, it's not as familiar anymore. And right now, I'm actually reading the series to my class during my 10 to 15-minute read alouds at the beginning of each day. And we've reached Eternity's Mirror, and I'm finding myself surprised by my own book. Like, oh my gosh, I wrote that. So I'll probably reread the books every few years when they start to fade for me to come back to it.
Well, it's got to be like a deja vu, right? You're reading your books and you're like, what? I wrote that?
In a way, it feels a little bit more intense than watching your favorite movie that you've seen, 5 times, because it's like, oh, I did do that, instead of, oh, I remember that part now. It's like a time capsule for my thoughts, because I can not only reread it and revisit my favorite parts, but also what I was thinking and feeling as I wrote that often comes back with it.
Well, the next question I have for you, Zachary, is you've built a powerful world filled with fate, dragons, and moral struggles. How has your own spiritual journey shaped the message behind this series?
You know what? In a way, the series kind of shaped my spiritual walk rather than the other way around.
Oh.
Or at least maybe it was shaped because of going through it, because I was engaging in spirituality so directly. When I first started the series, or actually when I first started the book, I didn't really know what it was going to turn into, because I started it as I think I had the first 10 chapters or so as a college project for a creative writing class. It shifted massively from how it started, so I hardly think it's fair to call it the same thing, but I didn't know what it was going to be initially. And yeah, because the first time I wrote a chapter from it, Elier was a sorcerer trying to become the most powerful magician, and he's very much not that in the final draft. And when I started writing it again, in response to my students and in response to losing my first teaching job, which I don't know if I've talked about that here, but I've talked.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so I lost my first teaching job, and it was kind of like a Job moment. Everything kind of fell down around me, and there was suddenly nothing for me to do. And two things kind of happened simultaneously. So I don't know which one is the chicken and which one is the egg, but one encountered a ministry that really helped open my eyes about who I was in Christ. And two, I got severance, so I didn't need to go looking for another job because I got my regular salary until the end of my contract. And so I had nothing to do. So I had this partial book, and I knew a student was looking for potentially that book to be expanded on, because I talked to them about the idea and they were interested. And suddenly I had time and the money to write full-time for a season. So I did.
I think that's when you moved the first time, right? Because you moved twice.
Yes, that was in 2021. We've moved several times.
I only know of 2 times.
Yeah, well, we've moved more than that. I think we spoke a couple times when I was living in Mississippi, but that first move, after I started writing, was to New Mexico, and then from New Mexico to Minnesota to Colorado very briefly, Mississippi for 2 years, and now we're in Florida.
Wow, I didn't know about New Mexico, so that one is a new one for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Zachary, when you're writing your stories, do you sometimes look at your faith for strength?
Routinely. I think that what really helps me to keep going, one is I've now done it 6 times. So it gets easier to write each book in a way, but it's also, I think for a lot of writers, they talk about like imposter syndrome coming in. And I would say that I struggle with that, but at the same time, I don't, because every time it starts to creep in, it's like, well, no, look at what God has already done through you. I know people that have been impacted and had their faith strengthened by reading my books. I know people that have met Jesus in a way that was accessible to them because they read particularly Eternity's Well. And so I know that for me, writing isn't just a pastime or a side income, it's a calling, because I think one of the ways that we learn the best is through story. And if I can teach through story truths that are hard to communicate or are quite frankly boring to communicate if communicated directly, very few people will go and just sit through a 10-hour sermon, but they will listen to a 10-hour audiobook or read a 30-chapter novel.
So Zachary, I know we talked about this in season 2 or season 3. We talked about this, the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of writers have that imposter syndrome when they're writing a book, right? Or when it gets published. And once it's in someone else's hands, right? We kind of feel like, oh, did I do enough? Is that really me? Like, so talk about imposter syndrome for the listeners out there that might not know what it is.
Yeah, so I think imposter syndrome really comes in when there's a misalignment of how you think of yourself versus reality, because it's hard to, we put things like writing and performance and these things that we see other people doing really well on a level where it's like, oh, well, I couldn't do that. That's not me. But a lot of people have those talents. And so the way that I have kind of gone about kind of getting rid of that is, one, it's a calling. And if I've always kind of gone by the phrase, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So if I don't have something that I need to be a writer, he's going to give it to me. If I don't have something that I need to be an effective teacher, he's going to give it to me because it's where he's put me. And so I kind of just say, if I don't know, or if I don't have that piece, I will. Because if I'm supposed to be doing this, it's going to work out if I just keep working at it.
Yeah. I know that we talked about it. I'm pretty sure it's season 3. So if everybody checks out Zachary's Tea Time on season 3, you'll hear about a little bit more about imposter syndrome. I think it was the edge. We were doing the edge when we were talking about it, because you had some struggles or something with the edge or something when you were writing it.
There were a couple that I had some struggle with, but edge may have been just because it was so challenging to write that book, because the teaching that I was doing was so different than anything I'd done before. So it took a lot of effort to get that one finished, just by the sheer amount of time that it took. So, but it got done.
Well, and that's the thing, right? We just got to push through it. And I believe when you did the edge, you had some struggles as well with a loss in the family or something as well during that time too, Zachary, if I remember right.
Yes. But thankfully we find a new normal and we keep moving forward.
Well, the next question that came in for you is, the Eternal Chronicles carries strong Christian undertones of light versus darkness. How do you balance spiritual symbols with immersive storytelling that resonate with readers of all backgrounds?
So I think that the balance there is largely because if people are looking for spirituality or they're open to it, it's going to be really present. But if it's not what they're looking for and they're not open to it, it's a really good fantasy story. It's an epic with romance and dragons and sword fights and gunfights. So it's a modern fantasy with technology, but it's also true to its roots of the genre. So I think that the balance is to not make it preachy. Like, I'm not making appeals in the text, but I am showing what the faith looks like. Because for all intents and purposes, Elior and the cast of characters are Christian, but they're not the social media persona of Christians. Like, they're not whiny and batting people over the head with things. They're walking out in faith and they're doing their best. And, you know, if they were on social media and someone asked them a question, I'm sure they'd be honest about what they thought, but their main concern is doing what they're called to do rather than talking at people.
We have a question that just came in. What was the number one sword fight in the series?
Oh gosh, there is just a fantastic sword fight near the end of Eternity's Mirror. Eternity's Mirror in many ways is kind of that high fantasy sweet spot where, because they travel to the other side of the world that doesn't have the modern technology. And so one of my favorite fight scenes in the series is there between the main cast and one of the lesser villains, but is the main kind of antagonist of that particular book. And it was so much fun to write that chapter. And then I think there were also some sword fights in Eternity's Refuge that were particularly good, but my favorite is in Eternity's Mirror.
In the Mirror. So if you want to check out the sword fight, go to the Mirror. So Zachary, is there an order to read the book? Like, if people like to jump from different books, what book should they read first?
Okay, the order absolutely, under no circumstances, can really be changed and have the story make sense. And I say this because someone actually went in and wrote a review for one of the books. I think it actually was Eternity's Edge. And they read it and they thought that Nereza was the main character for the whole series based off of that book because of how it starts. And they were confused because they didn't know what was happening. And I'm like, yes, because you started at book 4 of a 5-book arc. So the order absolutely is chronologically in the story: Eternity's Mirror, Eternity's Refuge, Eternity's Edge, and then Eternity's End.
So you have to go in order.
Yes, it is much like the Hunger Games trilogy or the Lord of the Rings main series or anything else where it's a direct, like, linear progression. It's not like I know a lot of romance series will say, you know, it's nice if you read the other ones, but they work as standalones as well. And my next series is going to work that way. But it's not Eternal Chronicles is not like that. You have to start at book 1 and read through to book 5. Otherwise, you will be missing vitally important plot points.
Another question that came in is your number one dragon in the series.
So because of, actually, you know what? I can answer that. My favorite dragon in the series, because he's a good one and his description was beautiful, he's golden, is Methuselah.
Oh, I like that name.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get that name, Zachary?
Well, Methuselah is one of the only, well, he was a dragon that voluntarily became a djinn, because Tariq or Solarium was his son, and that's the main villain, and he was trying to kind of assuage things. And he remains on the loyal side throughout the entire story, but this was the first dragon ever created. And so he's the oldest dragon in existence, the oldest djinn in existence. And his age kind of lent itself well to the name Methuselah, because Methuselah is the oldest recorded human to ever live.
I love that name. I'm going to
Me
get you to send me that name for my granddaughter. Like, that's a nice name. I want something unique for my granddaughter. I told my son. So far, they got Melina. I think it's Melina, which is different. So, but I like that name. Like, you got my attention there. It's just like, oh, no, I like that.
Yeah, he
Let's
was a
get
great
it
person to write for.
right. So how do you get the names of your characters and dragons and lands and all that, Zachary?
Some of it is kind of down to the ideas. To be honest, the names of the lands in the Eternal Chronicles were initially placeholders, but I ended up liking them so much by the end of the book that I just kept them. So Vidania was named because it combines the Spanish word life with just kind of an ending to make it sound like a country. So vida. And I'm Cuban, so and because the main character was sort of loosely based on me initially, not very much so by the end. By the end, he'd very much become his own person.
He's not like me at all.
I mean, there are similarities, like I said earlier, but it would have felt very weird to try to write myself into the fantasy fully. I think, they tell you to write what you know, and I did that, and it was a good jumping off point. And I'll let it be the jumping off point that it was. And then Registan was just the word for king, and the jinn are sort of, because jinn have an Arabic origin. I pulled from Islamic and Muslim names for a lot of that, and had the stan, because I think in Arabic that means land. It's been several years since I researched that name, so that kind of stayed where it was. And then Nanony has the word nano in it because it's the home of the dwarves. Phaland, it ended up working, but that one was very much kind of a placeholder because that's where the fairies live, so the land of the fae. And then Arborea, I kind of drew both from Tolkien and from Paolini's version of elves, in a sense, for the land of the elves. And it was so forested in both of those. So arbor, tree, arborea. And then the mer peoples, it's aqua for water, and then just modifying it to be aquare.
Well, you mentioned
so very
some really,
simple kinds of names.
Zachary, you mentioned some really great giants of faith and fantasy. You're influenced by Tolkien. Am I saying it right?
Tolkien. I think so. I've always said Tolkien, but people pronounce it differently, and he's not around.
And then there's Lewis, and then Paolini.
Paolini. So Christopher Paolini, he's the author of The Inheritance Cycle. Not really a faith-based author, very atheistic, but fantastic fantasy writer. I've enjoyed his books.
And what lessons have you carried from them into your own storytelling style?
I think really that you don't leave any stone unturned, because everything has a purpose in the story. If you're going to mention something, it has to mean something for the story. I think my creative writing professor in college always said, don't leave the gun on the mantle. If a character puts a gun on the mantle, that gun has to be important. So, and Paolini, Lewis, and Tolkien, maybe less so with Tolkien. Tolkien could have cut down on his books a lot, but the world is very rich. So world building, and also trying to pare things down to what's important.
What is it about world building that you find fascinating?
I think that you can really be exhaustive with it and be very, very detailed. Um, for example, I know that when they were working on the Avatar films, what is the director's name? I can't remember the director's name, but he had a whole ethnomusicology developed around the music of the Na'vi, and a lot of it didn't end up making it into the film, but because they knew what the music of the Na'vi, like the theory of it and everything was like, they were able to create it more authentically. So there's a lot of background information that doesn't make it into that first film. I haven't seen either of the second or the third yet, so I can't speak to those as to what ended up being included, but the background work for world building for that was so exhaustive that they could basically answer any question about the world just offhand. I didn't go quite that extensively. I remember, I think I came to a point where I was like, do they have a sewer system? Is it relevant? I ended up needing, I think there's a sewer system that I ended up including. Now I can't remember. I'll find out as I reread the books to my kids. But really, you can go that detailed as like, what does the sewer system of a city look like? And if it's relevant to the story, then that ends up being something that you can draw on. I will say I kind of world build somewhat as I go along. At least I have up to this point, I have sort of an epic fantasy series that I want to start building in the background. I'm not quite ready to write it yet, but I think that one's going to be big enough that I probably do need to have a series Bible where I have all of the world building kind of documented beforehand. Because that one's, I'm planning on that one being much bigger than any of the books that I've written so far.
Oh, wow. So you got big plans coming.
Mm-hmm. Right now, current plans, I'm finishing the editing and publication process for a book called Aisha's Secret, which is an Aladdin retelling. And that's coming out in February.
I seen that on your website. Tell me a little bit about that book.
Yes. So Aisha's Secret is, I could do a cover reveal if I'm able to share my screen.
You should be able to. It should allow you.
Let me see. I can pull that up. Okay. So present. Yep. I'll just do that.
Is it allowing you to do it, Zach?
Yes. So is it showing?
There we go.
There it is. I will zoom into that.
Look at that. I love the cover, first off, and I love the colors.
Yes. So Aisha's Secret follows Aisha, who is lovingly referred to, I'm sure, by the people of Makan al-Sahir, particularly Isama, the capital city, as the Oiled Hand, although no one knows exactly who that is. And she is a thief known for stealing gems right off of people at parties once they are drunk on pomegranate wine. But one day she comes home and is basically told that she'll be evicted if she doesn't pay this exorbitant amount to her landlord, who doesn't feel that she is the kind of person that he wants to have living in his apartments. And she comes up with the money somehow by finding valuable items at a market that she's told is outside of the city. And when that still isn't enough, she makes a wish and is transported into the life of a princess, displacing Prince Aladdin. And she has to keep that secret of who she really is, or it all comes crumbling down.
Oh, interesting. So this pomegranate wine, is that where you got the color for the cover?
I wish I could say yes. Honestly, I just liked the color and it went well with the gold.
It blends really well in the layout of Miss Liz. Two of my favorite colors is like that mulberry pomegranate kind of reddish burgundy kind of, and the gold. It looks amazing. When I seen that, I was like, when's that one coming out?
Yes, so that'll be coming out in February. I don't have the exact date yet. I think it'll probably be right before Valentine's Day, is what I'm thinking, because it's a romance.
Now that one got my attention.
Mhm.
I'm a dragon girl too, but I mean that one, when I seen that on the website, I was like, what's this one about?
Yeah,
I was like, Ricky gonna send me that one. That one looks interesting. The dragons, it reminds me of the dragon. What is it, Braveheart?
Mm-hmm.
That's what your dragons remind me of. The image of your dragons remind me of that movie Braveheart.
Yeah, I can see that.
So Zachary, I want to talk about your tea. You gave me tenacity, evolution, and enchantment. Why those three words?
So tenacity, I think, because there's just been a lot of obstacles, but I've pushed past a lot. And I think that one of the things that I've developed in my life that has served me the best is that tenacity. It's a great evolution of the stubbornness that I had as a kid and as a young adult.
That's how we're looking at tenacity, stubborn.
Yeah.
Because I was told that too, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Now that you say stubborn,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I think that stubbornness has definitely a negative connotation, but it's the other side of tenacity. Stubbornness can be brutish and a little foolhardy, but tenacity is the ability to keep going and to persist when there's opposition. And I think that that's important. I think it's an important quality for people to have, particularly if you were in a line of work that is so saturated. So writing is a really saturated genre. It's a saturated field because everyone is writing a book. Not everyone writes them well, but everyone is still doing it.
That's how I feel about podcasting. Everyone is podcasting, but not everyone is good at it, right?
Yes. So it takes a lot of talent, and it also takes the stick-to-itiveness to get your name out there and do all the social media things, and it's very much the same with podcasting. So I'm just now starting to get good at the social media thing, and it's more so for another business that I'm running than that, but I'm hoping that the application will carry over to my writing pages.
Yeah. No, you feel drowned out because there's so many people doing it, and so many that don't have the passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of takes away from your passion because you see so much of it. Like it's like a pond of fish, and it's just overpopulated. Like,
yeah, people generating books with AI has not helped either. But thankfully, it's not quite good enough yet that we can really not tell a difference. At least I can tell a difference if I read something that's written by AI. Like I use AI for things, not for writing, never for writing. But I was trying to get kind of shoot some ideas back and forth with for what I was going to do for the next book in Aisha's series. It's not going to be exactly Aisha's series. It's a series of fairy tale retellings, so they'll work as standalones as well. But oh my goodness, the ideas it was giving him, like, that's a terrible plot, or that doesn't work for this reason. So I'm like, okay, it can't quite formulate a novel idea correctly, but at least there's some pieces of material that are good here.
I fight with AI all the time, Zachary. I just find it has no empathy and no understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it gets you frustrated, and I know what we have control over our own emotions and stuff like that, but I get to a point where I'm just like, reboot yourself. Like, give me another AI, give me another robot, because you're not understanding what I'm trying to look for or trying to dig harder. And I like to dig deep and try and get stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell the difference. When I read something too, there's no emotion.
Yeah, it's a great tool, but it is not the be all end all. I don't think it will ever truly replace the heart and soul that goes into a fresh story, because all it can do is generate based on what it's read before, but that doesn't mean that it's going to give you something truly meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Zachary, I have some lightning bolt questions here, so just quick answers for these questions.
Sure.
Blue feels like
Ice.
ice. Blue is your favorite color. Why?
Blue is my favorite color because it feels cooling and calm. I love the cold, so that would be why the ice is a good thing for me.
I like it. Favorite fantasy creature you've written?
Oh, I love my Jinn. I love them so much that they make it. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do an Aladdin retelling, so I could write more of them, but have them be good this time.
So, what is the Jinn for the people that don't know?
Yes, so Jinn is the original form of the word genie. And
Oh,
I grew to love them because of Children of the Lamp. I don't remember I don't remember the author's name, but Children of the Lamp was a scholastic book series that I got introduced to in elementary school, and I loved those books.
one word that defines your writing journey.
One word that defines my writing journey. Tenacious, I guess. That would be why the T is in there.
He's got lots of T's going on. The hardest chapter you ever wrote?
I don't want to give it away for people that haven't read it, but it would have to be for those who have read it, it's the throat scene in Eternity's Refuge. And if you know, you know. But hopefully that's enough to get you to read it. I wrote that chapter and I think I cried for about an hour after it. Yeah.
And that's book 3, correct?
That's book 3.
Beverage. And then the edge came. I could see
Mm-hmm.
why. There we go. A quote that captures your faith.
A quote that captures my faith. Jesus is Lord. Even and feelings are not Lord. Jesus is Lord.
A song that embodies eternity ends.
Oh gosh, I don't know. It would probably have to be something instrumental, or
Kind of like an orchestra.
you know what? Maybe I Have Fixed My Mind by Reggie Smith. Maybe that one. In a way, I think it's hard to encompass that book because there's so much going on in it, and so many loose ends are tied up.
Reggie Smith. I'm going to have to check that out. You're giving me homework now, Zachary. The best advice you ever received as an author?
Write first, edit later.
We talked about this. I remember that. Yes, we did. Because a lot of people edit as they're writing.
Yep, and then it never gets done. If you
And
edit,
it takes away from the story because you're taking stuff out that needs to be there.
Yes.
Which of your characters reflects you the most?
Oh goodness. I mean, I think at one point I would have said Elior, but I think towards the end, I think that Nyx probably reflected me the most. I would say in the newest book, I think Aladdin probably has some good reflection in there as well, just because he's so tied to doing what's right. And I think that that's become something that's really important to me, especially since becoming a father.
Finish this. Faith and fantasy meet when?
The heart is open.
Do you want to elaborate on that one?
So I think that faith and fantasy meet when the heart is open, because story and faith both come from our innermost selves, because to understand a story, you have to kind of open yourself up to it. And the imagination is most alive when we are not closed off, and faith is most real when we are open to.
We have a question here. Eternity End explores leadership, love, and legacy. How do those themes reflect on your own values as a father, husband, and creator?
So, as I was writing Eternities, and we hadn't gotten pregnant yet, but we were in the process of going through infertility and working through that. And the leadership, the legacy, I think was tied in because my wife needed to lean on me through a lot of that, because it was really especially difficult for her. I mean, it was hard for both of us, but especially her, because it was her not getting pregnant no matter what we tried up until we did IVF. And we were trying to create, obviously, children, which is a legacy, but we needed leadership and everything through that. And so I think those themes were what I needed to rely on and remind myself of when I was writing that book. And so the reflections there, and it accounts for a lot of the actions that Eliar and his friends take in that book.
And for readers who will close this book and say goodbye to Luck and Nork Terror, what message do you hope stays with them long after the final page?
That there is a place where they will be welcomed to if they continue on the journey that they are called to. The door is open for all of us.
And Zachary, a question just came in. Are any of your characters built on your wife?
Yes. In many ways, Nereza and Opal have pieces of her.
I like that name. I'm going to reach out to you for some girl names for my upcoming granddaughter that's coming. So many beautiful names that you don't hear. God.
Well, if you love that name, Nereza I really liked, but I named the daughter, well, I won't say of who, but her name is Eden in the epilogue of Eternity's End. So I love Eden. That was a good name for us.
That's a nice name too. So
not very common, but still recognizable.
So one thing your son has taught you in the last 6 months?
I used to think that I valued a lot of things, but it turns out that I really just value I value the important things, and the things that are important is a much shorter list than it was 6 months ago. So I think that priorities.
And Zachary, if anybody wanted to get your books, where can they find them? And for the audio listeners, just spell out the website.
Yes, so everything can be found on Amazon. That's amazon.com. If you search Zachary Hagen, you'll find my author page, or if you search Eternities Well, you'll find that near the top. So easy to find.
And final message for all the listeners tonight.
Read voraciously.
Well, thank you so much, Zachary. It was a pleasure having you on Tea Time again. I'm just going to do a closing summary of tonight's Tea Time. I will see everybody for the last Tea Time of November on Thursday, and then we're going to be jumping into December, and then we're wrapping up season 6 and starting season 7. And season 7 will begin on Valentine's Day. It is a Saturday, so I have a lot of surprises for season 7. As we close tonight's Tea Time, I invite you all to pause and reflect on this question. What battle in your life is asking you to choose light, even when the darkness feels louder? Zachary's message through Eternity Ends is clear, that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to rise again anyway. The faith isn't passive, it's active. And that every story, even the ones inside us, has a purpose for the bigger than the moment we're in. Zachary reminds us that the ending are never the end. They are the doorways to the new beginnings. His heroes fought with conviction, with heart, and with a trust in the light. And maybe that's the reminder we all need tonight. Thank you, Zachary, for having me a part of your journey, for pouring truth, imagination, and spiritual depth into this tea time. Your journey through the Eternal Chronicles may be the ending, but the hope you leave with readers will carry on long after the last page. Thank you so much, Zachary, for tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again.